personal experiences.
Cool.
Just because I've always, especially with romantic partners specifically, like I can speak to, is that I've always allowed like there to be an open space, like for that kind of discussion. And I don't discourage, because my mom never discouraged. My dad was a little bit discouraging of like, okay, like this isn't something we need to talk about. Like,
Right.
I'm not the person to talk to. So with my mom, she was always very open, especially with my brother. So I knew coming off the bat, like, when I'm in a romantic relationship with someone, I want to make sure that they feel secure, like you are my partner. So to speak to that, like I've never firsthand experienced like an avoidant, like somebody being avoidant when I want to have conversations. It's more of like for me personally, I don't know how to express my feelings without feeling like I'm inconveniencing somebody, like inconveniencing my partner.
That's
Conversation.
you saying
That's
that?
me. Yeah.
Okay.
And so like, especially with my past relationship, my most recent relationship, it was never, we're not going to sit down and talk. It's more of like, I need to open up, and I wasn't being clear enough about what I want, because I don't want to overstep, or, like I always minimize my feelings and never prioritize my feelings ahead of his.
Great awareness.
Yeah. So
Great awareness.
Thanks. But so like, it's weird, like when you say something like that, like it's always very strange for me when people bring up, especially in regards to men, like, like, oh, I never feel like I'm open enough to talk, because every man since my last relationship, every man that I've come in contact with romantically, I never make them feel uncomfortable in sharing, but then that leaves for like an unnecessary like dump on me. I don't know how else to say
That's
that,
okay.
but it's an emotional dump, because I am so open. Now everything falls on me, and now I have the emotional weight that has been pent up for them, because I'm like one of the first women to like provide that space.
Oh yeah.
And I've been noticing it a lot, like I'm sorry, I don't mean to be loud, but I'm noticing it a lot in like every man that I've interacted with since.
Okay.
And that is overwhelming.
Absolutely.
Especially because most of the women I know in my life, it's all very conflicting for me, because most of the women in my life that I know are very open, and like I personally just can't see how that would be an issue in like a relationship.
Oh yeah.
Because of like, I know my friends, and I know the women that I come in contact to, and women are always very open for me, and like especially women I don't know. It's just always weird when men are like, I never feel like emotionally like ready to talk about it, and I'm like,
oh yeah.
Are you sure? Like, have you asked the question, or are you just assuming because of like her disposition, or you're just assuming that she wouldn't be open to hearing you?
No, absolutely.
So,
and we're definitely going to get more into what you're talking about in a little while, because that's a really good example. Because that's a little, I would say that's a little inverted, because usually it would be the guy. I feel like it would be more like, I don't want to touch on that.
Right.
But no, I provide that perspective because not just from my own lived experience, but I work with and have talked to a lot of men.
Yeah.
I will tell you, it's almost universal. Not even in the United States. I'm talking about in the world.
Right.
Because most men, even if they're raised in a two-parent household, okay? Let me take a step back, and then I'm going to come to the next question, because we're still on family. For most people who are in a two-parent household, I'm going to say a heteronormative relationship, so meaning male and female dynamic. If you have a boy and a girl, this is a little different for you. It'll make more sense for you because you had brothers too. You only had sisters. If you have, let's just say two siblings, boy and a girl, mom and dad. This is both how people tend to behave. It could look slightly different, but this is general disposition for young people. A young girl typically will identify with aspects and attributes of her mother because she can see herself in her mom, clearly because mom's bore us, right? And then usually, if father's present, there's a level of love and admiration for their father, because that's usually the first man that they somewhat fall in love with, not in a inappropriate way, but in terms of what they represent. That father represents, again, for heterosexual relationships, they represent what they should expect from men and how men should treat them. So if that person's present and the way that they interact with me, they help set the tone for what I should deal with, what I should tolerate, what my expectations would be. They're shaping that, not because they're telling you. It's based on the way that they treat you throughout your duration of your childhood. So if they let you talk openly, if they ask you how you're feeling, if they give you respect and they honor the things that you talk about, you sort of build those expectations over time for how a man should treat you. Now let's flip that. For young men, we identify with our fathers. There's aspects we want to be like them because we see ourselves in them. And then with our mothers, it's the opposite. Then we love our mothers, and they represent the love that we want from women. Why? Because they're the first people you get the opportunity to develop that secure attachment with, right? You can't. Nobody else can come before them. So I deal with the other side when you don't develop the attachment and all the issues that come with that, meaning some person was completely absent physically, or they were physically present but emotionally absent.
Right.
There's still an impact there because I didn't still get to develop that attachment. That's why I like when you said I feel like I kind of understand my parents as humans and people, not just as parents. It's a different role. But my point is, that's usually the dynamic of how we see ourselves, whether it's taught to us explicitly or not. That's usually how we'll kind of like internalize a lot of these things. So what can happen is, for some of us, we maybe have both parents. Somebody might be unavailable. It's usually dads emotionally. And even to your point, like dad had to provide because that's typical male role. And emotional availability typically comes from who? From mom. She's the one that's like, here, sit down. Let's talk about it. So it's kind of confusing sometimes for guys because like not that it's bad that moms do that because it's not at all, but it would be great if dad did it too. Like if he sat down and was like, son, come here, let's talk about it. And made him feel like it's okay to cry about that issue. It's okay to open up about this issue. It's okay to trust other men and trust women that everybody's not going to treat you wrong, that everybody's not going to mistreat you, that you can develop trust and confidence in other people. But it starts when we're really small.
Yeah.
All these ideas, these beliefs, trust me, I have conversations like this all the time. These beliefs that people think are really true. We're going to get into this in a little while. That comes from our families that tell you this is the way it's got to be. And this is the way people are supposed to treat you. We hold them to be absolute truths. And sometimes they need to be challenged because sometimes they're wrong.
It's not sometimes.
You know,
That's all I say.